Hi, everyone. So I am here today with Cindy, and Cindy is not a patient, never has been of mine, and we are connected because of her story of radical remission of a chronic autoimmune disease. And this is the kind of conversation, this is why I wake up in the morning. This is literally why I wake up in the morning, because I feel so passionately that everyone needs to know that these kinds of seemingly unexpected, but actually what can be quite predictable once you sort of enter into this realm of holistic healing, that these kinds of outcomes are real. Cindy, I want to start by sort of backtracking in your experience to when was the first time that you entered the medical system? When was it that you were, as I sometimes say, hexed? When was it that you were labeled with this, sort of term that then had the potential to shape your future?
Okay. Well, I had my son in 1999, and 7 weeks after I gave birth to him, I found out that I had lupus, systemic lupus, and I found out because I had swelling in my wrist, and I almost dropped him. He didn't weigh much, but I almost dropped him. So along with that, I was also diagnosed with antiphospholipid syndrome, which is a blood clotting disorder that typically goes hand in hand when you have lupus. That's what I was told. The diagnosis, when I first got it, the doctor called me and said, I tested you, you're tested positive for lupus, which is you have to have 4 out of 11 tests come back positive. And he said, I don't know much about it. You may want to get on the internet. That's the kiss of death. So that began my story. I fell to my knees. My mom was here with me, and I fell to my knees. I thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to die. And so I lived the next 18 years trying to figure out, how do I get rid of this? What have I been vexed and hexed with? What is this? So I figured out some things along the way, that I needed more rest than the average bear, and I had to take care of myself. So I worked out, and I've been doing CrossFit for the last 8 years, but I felt like more tired than I probably should have felt all along. So that's how I ended up knowing that I had something wrong with me. But the way that it manifested itself in me, where I was unwell, I just never felt quite right. I also had what I didn't know, what I now understand from you, is an alarm system built in within me. And what would happen when I would eat sugar, gluten, corn, soy, dairy, all of the offenders that I now know affect me, I would get synovitis, and that was another diagnosis. So the synovial fluid in my joints would inflame, it would swell, and it would hurt like the dickens. I couldn't even grip a steering wheel after. And that I lived my life like that. I couldn't do many things. We like to go and be active. We have 3 people in my family. We like to do lots of things. And many times I couldn't. I just couldn't.
Because the connection, you weren't able to make that connection between cause and effect. And so I imagine that 9 out of 10 people in your situation, that just trying to live life with these seemingly, unpredictable symptoms became very challenging. And I'm guessing at some point you opted for medication.
I did. Initially, what I got on was, they put me on Zoloft.
Oh.
Because they thought maybe balancing my hormones in some way might have an effect on the lupus itself. And so my question then was, how do antidepressants balance your hormones? And the doctor literally said, well, they don't, but it'll help you get through it. Okay.
So sort of like take the edge off, do yourself a favor, make this a bit easier for yourself kind of a thing. Yeah.
So I ended up on a slew of medications, and I've had lupus or whatever for 18 years. And so I've had a whole host of medications that I've been on, from steroids, so prednisone I was on from time to time intermittently whenever it would get really bad. I was on Plaquenil, which is what another doctor told me. This is the vitamin they give for people who have lupus. So it's an anti-malarial drug, and its major side effect is blindness. You can go blind, literally. And I got to the point where I felt so bad that I would rather be blind. I'd rather take a chance and be blind than to feel the way I felt. It helped. I don't know if it was psychosomatic or if it was real. I really don't know. But after I got on that, I also had a host of other digestive issues. So I was on Nexium. I was on aspirin for the antiphospholipid syndrome. So I've been on the Zoloft at one point. I'm trying to think of what, an Ambien, because I couldn't sleep well. So over the course of the 18 years, I was on and off all of those medications and more. There's more that I can't even think of right now that I have been on because I didn't feel well.
And so many people end up coasting in this sort of survival state, right? So what happened to bring you to a point of readiness, of awareness, of sort of a felt entitlement to a different kind of life? You know, how did that light switch turn on?
It was all by chance, honestly. I really think that this was a sweet friend of mine named Scarlett sent me your podcast with Joe Rogan. And I don't hear from her often, but she said she had heard it and she thought of me and she thought I might want to listen. I listened to it twice that day, and it's over 3 hours long. I couldn't. So when you were speaking and when you were talking about what was going on with inflammation and autoimmunity, my jaw was on the floor. I couldn't believe. I cried. I literally could not believe you were saying what you were saying because I thought that's me.
So you never heard these concepts before, but when you heard them, it felt true.
It felt true. I had to be honest. I have been searching for something. I followed Rob Wolf. I was aware of the paleo solution. I've been a CrossFitter, so I knew about some of the elements of this, but I didn't know. No one had ever tied it all together. I had never heard it packaged like you do, like the science behind it, the gut. I had no idea that my gut was the major problem. So once I got that information locked in, that's when that was my aha moment. Then I was like, okay, now I get that this might be what was wrong with me the entire time, and I didn't know it. I had a celiac test, and I wasn't celiac.
Right.
So I disregarded it, and I thought, well, I guess I can eat this. It's fine. I had no idea that I had a sensitivity that was causing all of these underlying issues, and it's real. It's true. I held on to my letter from my doctor telling me that I was in remission from lupus and antiphospholipid syndrome because I wanted to make sure. I'm like, is this really real? It really is real. I couldn't believe. And I can tell you it's real because I feel it.
Yeah.
I know it's real. And but besides the other symptoms that I had before, which was the achiness and the unwell, I was always hungry, never ever satisfied. And so the low blood sugar, never even thought of it. It didn't even occur to me, and it makes perfect sense. But I've dug into your work. I bought your book, and it makes so much sense to me now. And I will never go back. I will never be who I was before. And I thank you for that.
So it's amazing because I often say that the best teaching is simply sort of reminding you of what you already know, right? So just bringing to your awareness what's inside buried. So once you sort of had that experience, what did you begin to implement? Sort of what became your lifestyle shifts and changes? What did that look like for you?
Well, that was where I started following the diet, and it was. I knew it wasn't gimmicky because it's just taking out foods that are bad for you. So I started taking out gluten. I started by eating all of the same things that you said in one of your earlier podcasts. I was laughing because I was eating the gluten-free options of things too, and that didn't make me feel any better. Yeah. But once I took out all of the grain, all of the dairy, which included having to take out coffee because I drank cream in my coffee. And that was difficult. My husband would bring me a cup of coffee every single day. And that was our ritual. And that was neat for us. And he now brings me a cup of hot water with a little squeeze of lemon in it. And he goes, here's your coffee. It's really sweet. So, yeah. But I knew that taking out these foods, I could see it. I remember eating a cupcake when my best girlfriend and I went down, and I said, well, I want a cupcake. And we went to this bakery and had the best cupcake ever. And I said, I'm going to swell up. I knew this. I'm going to swell up. And she said, well, why are you going to eat it? And I was like, because it's good. And so I did. And within 2 minutes, I'm so swollen that I can't grip anything. Who does that? I did for 18 years. That's what I did because it was good and I craved it. I wanted it. And I didn't know, I mean, as crazy as that sounds, I didn't put two and two together. I didn't know that that's what was doing all of this to me.
Well, it's difficult to make that connection, mostly because the medical system sets you up to be at war with your body. You know, all of the medications, right, were in service of managing your body into submission. So why would you ever be sensitized to the meaning of these symptoms, right? They're just annoying and you're just going to try to get rid of them. So, you know.
Which made me think of another time I was put on birth control pills, which is the progesterone only, to mask the symptoms of the synovitis.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's why they put me on, and it worked. It worked until it didn't.
Until it didn't. No free lunch, right?
No.
Yeah. So you had what I understand to be a pretty rapid response in terms of symptoms to relief, you know, came quickly for you.
Yes. Well, my symptoms were, I mean, they screamed at me. And so I would have flare-up often. And they were right there, right in my face. So when I treated myself with the diet protocol, taking care not to eat any grain, and I'm really reading labels and taking out the sugar, the dairy, the corn, the soy, all of the offenders that now I know caused me to flare. I don't have. That's what unfolded is I really don't have this. How does it go in remission that fast?
Yes, it was within weeks, right?
Yes. I mean, how does that happen?
And so tell me, I'm just so curious how that interaction with your physician went.
Well, so I'm in there for my testing, and I had gone into the laboratory, I guess, before. I guess it was right around the time when I started dabbling in the diet, because I could only do it for about 2 weeks the first time I tried, because it's hard. And when you first start, it's hard. So I've been doing it for a while now. But I went into the laboratory and I got my blood work drawn and everything. And so by the time I saw him a couple of weeks later, that was when he delivered the information. He said, you're asymptomatic. None of your blood levels and your labs are indicating that you have lupus. And I said, well, I nearly fell off the table. I was like, what? What did you? Because I've seen this man for a long time. He's the second rheumatologist that I've seen, and I've seen him for about 5 years. And he said, you no longer have lupus. And I was like, you're kidding me. And he said, and I said, can you write me a letter that says that? Because I need to send it to my insurance company, because I can't get life insurance. When you have lupus, they don't want you. So he said, yes, I can. And he said, I'll do this. I'll write you a letter that states that you're in remission of lupus and your antiphospholipid syndrome. I couldn't believe it. I got in my car and I bawled.
I know, it makes me tear up. It's so beautiful.
I cried so many happy tears and then grief. Like, how awful to have to go through 18 years of your life like that because you don't know what you're telling people. I didn't know. And once I heard it, it all made sense to me. It was that, and thank God for you for packaging it together and putting it, for realizing your purpose, because it changed my life. Huge.
It's a challenging aspect of this, right? Because so many of the women that I talk to, and men who have recovered, you know, and shed these diagnoses, they have that grief, sometimes rage. And the reality is that you had to be ready. You had to be ready to live this lifestyle. Rilke has this quote that's about, from a poem that's about how we have to live the question until we are ready to live the answer, right? So, we need to sort of, for whatever reason, sit in the muck for a while, some of us, right? And then one day it just all shifts. And what I love about your experience, Cindy, is that so many people believe that it needs to be this linear pattern of getting a little better, little better, little better. And sometimes it's a quantum leap, and you're living proof of that, and to have that reflected by the medical establishment is such a unusual gift. To be unhexed in this way, it's got to be so liberating to your psyche.
He said to me, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it.
I don't really want to know. Let's not study it.
Yeah. He's very sweet, but he was taking his 10 minutes that doctors will really give you, and looking at all my labs and everything. I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it. Okay. And one of the things, if you do have I consider it miraculous. It was a huge lift. One of the things you talked about also was, this is your currency. Not feeling well is kind of your currency. This is how you kind of navigate the world. And I realized that's who I had become. I'm the girl who's, I have lupus, I can't do these things, and I might not feel well, so I better not sign up for this. And I can't do a lot of things. I limited myself because that was my currency, because I bought into how I felt. But I don't feel that way anymore. I'm not. And I know part of it is a mindset. I didn't necessarily have the mindset first, though. I felt it.
Yeah.
I felt so different after taking all of that out of my diet. That was the evidence, that I'm evidence-based, that I needed the evidence first, and then I would believe it.
Yes.
And that's why I was like, this is really happening. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. So
that was 100% my experience too, with my own autoimmune condition. That I felt so different. I didn't realize how many things were not right.
Right.
I felt so different, and that's what inspired me to sort of really progress with the mindset shift. So I'd love to sort of close on just sort of aspirations that you now are allowing yourself to have, whether it's around self-care or sort of personal experience, or whether you're just in this place where you're comfortable not knowing what's next and just sort of sitting with that.
I started volunteering at the Dallas Museum of Art after I got released from my diagnosis, I guess, if you will, because I wanted to do something. I wanted to do something to give back, and that's where my heart was. And I never would have done something like this before, and I love it. It's so much fun. And I have to give kudos to my husband, because he's been such a cheerleader and such a supporter of mine the whole way, trying to help me, educate me, and every step that I take with this, he's supportive. And he laughs and he says, I better not leave my coffee laying around anywhere, because we don't know where it might end up.
That's a valid concern.
True. Yeah,
he's
been so sweet to me, and I think he may even be more excited than I am about this whole journey and this process and the relief of the diagnosis that I don't have anymore. So. And
it's such a powerful reminder, right, that the greatest way to love those we love is to take care of ourselves. It's the greatest gift we can give to the people in our lives, that we care about. And so, gosh, I find everything about this experience that you've shared to be confirmation of what you and I and so many, thousands, maybe millions of others at this point are beginning to understand, which is that we weren't told the whole story about our capacity to heal and to awaken to an experience of our bodies, our lives, our possibilities. And of course, your first impulse is to serve. Like, the beauty in that is so profound. So I want to just thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing this message.
All of the things that you do to put this together and get this out to people like me. because you truly changed my life, and I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, it's the perfect partnership. So
Yeah.
thank you, Cindy. All right, be well.